Welcome to the Astrology Forecast with Justin and Liz. We're talking about February 2025. Welcome, Justin. It's good to have you on my show again. How you
Yeah, thank
doing?
you. Thank you for having me on, Liz. I'm excited to talk about February with you.
I know. I mean, January is already over. It
Yeah, yeah,
went pretty
that's right.
fast.
That's right. It is over. Tomorrow's February. So it's a good time to take a look at February and see what it looks like. Month
Okay.
of Valentine's Day, right?
Yes. So Justin's website is justincrockettelzie.com and my website is alightpath.com, and we enjoy hearing from you. And we're going to talk a little bit about Aquarius. Aquarius is a fixed sign. It's reliable. Gets pays attention to the detail and puts in the work. It's an air sign. It's a knowledge giver. Its ruling planets are Saturn is the traditional and Uranus is the modern. And the key word is, or the mantra is, I know. Would you like to say some of the key words down there in the cautions, Justin?
Well, yeah, and I was going to say the reason why it has the keyword I know is because it's an air sign and it generally rules the 11th house in the formal chart and has a relationship to knowledge. So, for example, if you have Jupiter in Aquarius, then you grow as a soul through the expansion of knowledge. You're really interested in wisdom and knowledge and information. And so some of the key words are humanitarian, assertive, innovative, visionary, because you know that Aquarius is forward thinking, usually more progressive, generally. Confident, intellectual, and original ideas. Definitely original ideas. I like that one. Some things to be aware of, maybe the darker shadow side of it can be obstinate, aloof, stubborn, unpredictable, impulsive, detached, and definitely emotionally detached. They can be a
Yes.
little bit, and sometimes it's not necessarily negative because it's if there's not an extreme to it, because sometimes you do need to detach and observe what's going on, and so that can be, just as long as there's a balance with it, right?
Right. In certain situations, that's very appropriate, like you say. And they can come up with some really genius ideas, and their mind moves very quickly and is very focused. So on February 1st at midnight, not too far from now, the moon phase, the moon is in Pisces and the sun is in Aquarius, so they're still in a new moon phase. And that moon is at 19 degrees Pisces and it's conjunct Saturn. The ascendant is at 29 degrees Libra, so that's an anaretic degree, so it's a changing degree. It's, possibly wanting to get some things finished up and tie up loose ends and move on to something new. And the midheaven is at 7 degrees Leo. So would you like to add anything, Justin?
No, I think I'll let's move on.
Okay. And then also on February 1st, we have this Pisces party with Saturn, the moon, Venus, Neptune in the North Node. And in astrology language, we call that a stellium. So there's like this energy around water, visions, dreams, intentions, heart, emotions. What else would you like to add to that?
Well, I think I agree with you, and I think this is something really to pay attention to, because this is like kind of one of the last hurrahs with these planets in Neptune, because as we know, Venus moves into Aries this month, and then of course over the next couple of months, so does Saturn and Neptune are coming up here. So we're almost having this sort of last hurrah in the sign of Pisces for a lot of these planets.
Yes, because Saturn and Neptune will dip their toe into Aries for a short time, and even Venus, and then they'll back into Pisces. So it's kind of this energy from the last sign of the zodiac to the first sign, going from water to fire, back to water and to fire.
Yeah.
So out of bounds is a declination that exceeds 23 degrees and 27 minutes north or south. And that means that they're out of the bounds of the sun and acting on their own. So the moon is out of bounds from February 6th through the 10th and the 21st through the 25th. And Mars has been out of bounds since January 1st and will be out of bounds until April 7th.
Right, right.
So do you want to talk about the planets ingressing?
Yeah, so Venus, of course, ingresses into Aries. For the East Coast, it happens on the 4th, and for the West Coast, it happens on the 3rd, just because of time zones. And then, of course, on the 14th, Mercury moves into Pisces, and on the 18th, the Sun moves into Pisces.
And we're going to want to remember when that Venus moves into Aries, because I'll mention something else that's going to happen just a couple hours, less than 2 hours after that Venus moves into Aries. So planets stationing retrograde or direct on February 4th. Jupiter stations direct at 11 Gemini, and that Jupiter stations just less than 2 hours after Venus goes into Aries. So there's, two prominent things happening on February 4th. And then on February 23rd, Mars stations direct at 17 degrees Cancer. So that'll be nice because it'll feel like we can get more things done, accomplished and done. It's like, it's
Moving
like
forward. Yeah.
a lot of effort kind of behind the scenes. And, it's like you get certain part done. And it's like, oh, now I realize I didn't do this and I need to do that now.
Yeah. And I think, these two directs, these two planets, I think is pretty powerful in the collective right now. Since Jupiter is all about, in Gemini is all about communications and ideas and learning. And I think with it going direct, it's going to be sort of this wave of shot in the arm of really communications expanding exponentially. And then, of course, I think that, if we look at our own political system, one side has been kind of quiet a little bit, but I think that after this direct, I think we're going to see things as just kind of expand exponentially. And of course, it's a good time for people then to start to take action with writing or public speaking. And then for any communications. And then I like the Mars definitely, because when Mars is going direct, when it's retrograde, you're not necessarily moving forward, right? And so I like it when it goes direct. And I think I agree with you. It's really great because now we can move forward with some things.
And I also want to mention that yesterday on January 30th that Uranus stationed direct. So having two outer planets, so to speak, stationing direct within 5 days of each other, it's like we can add a week before that January 30th and a week after this February 4th that you can almost feel the electricity, because Uranus to me is electricity. It's lightning. It has some static to it. And when planets are stationing direct or retrograde, to me, it kind of rises that intensity or rises that energy around all that.
Right.
And you're going to tell us about the nakshatra for February.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to kind of bring into the monthly forecast was a little bit of the Jyotish, and maybe looking at certain planets during the month to understand what lunar mansions that they're working through, nakshatras. So it kind of gives us a much deeper insight into how that planet is reacting. So I thought I'd take a look at Venus. We're in the month of love. And Venus is one of the two major planets that actually ingresses into a different sign besides Mercury and the Sun. So I thought I'd take a look at Venus and see what lunar mansion or nakshatra that it's going to be at in this month. And for the whole month of February, Venus is going to be in a nakshatra called Uttara Bhadrapada, which is a lunar mansion it's called the Warrior Star. And the deity associated with this is the serpent of the sea. It's like the serpent of the deep sea, and is related to Kundalini energy. And also the goddess Lakshmi, which is related to, has a very Taurus or Venus aspect to herself, dealing with prosperity and luxury, is also related to this nakshatra. So this month for Venus, actually, as we say, it's going from Pisces into that fiery Aries, there's going to be almost a warrior feel to Venus this month. So we might want to watch. I mean, it's going to make people a lot more passionate, and so we had kind of maybe have to watch that in our relationships, how that passion, anger, and aggression may play out. But is it a positive thing? This can be a time when we initiate new affections and new desires with Venus and Aries. So that's just a little bit about give you a deeper insight. And so this also could be a month of really great if you're really working on your spiritual life, working with Kundalini energy. And if you're, because we know Venus rules Taurus, and that second house and money, value, resources, also a good time to start some new income, or maybe even gain some new possessions. I'm one of those people. I just acquired a big grandfather clock. So anyway, it's just one of these things where you can, really, there's going to be sort of this maybe desire to kind of, be that warrior, get out there and start new things, and maybe even buy new things, with the Venus and Aries. What do you think about the Venus and Aries?
Oh, it's going to be a different energy for sure from when she was in Pisces, because she's exalted in Pisces, and Aries isn't her favorite sign, but I think, it'll light things up a little bit. So,
Yeah.
and get things moving again, and kind of with that Mars going to go direct at the end of the month.
Yep.
So we're going to look at February 1st through the 7th. And this chart is for February 7th at 1:41 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so that's the Jupiter direct stations direct chart. So we start out with, on the 1st, we have Venus conjunct Neptune in Pisces. That's a powerful aspect, and it's also conjunct with the North Node. Not exact, because these dates are when the conjunctions happen exact, but that's pretty interesting at those late degrees of Pisces with the Venus and North Node and Neptune. So maybe having some new intentions and new dreams, and to start working on that to manifest. And then with the nakshatra, that might help bring it to manifest. Do you want to talk about the next one?
Yeah, so Mercury in Aquarius is going to be trining Jupiter in Gemini. And I think this is a pretty powerful thing, because Mercury being the planet of communication in an air sign Aquarius, and it's trining Jupiter in Gemini, which is our, and so this is very powerful in an easy flow of energy of communications in the collective. So I think it just really highlights the whole air energy that we're finishing up with this next month and a half, with Jupiter actually soon to go into Cancer, and the Sun leaving Aquarius. I think this is sort of a really kind of a last wave here with some of these aspects in these planets and air signs.
And then Mars in Cancer is square Chiron in Aries. So I would say there's something around, it could be our wounds. And to me, they might be surfacing. They're just calling for attention to work on healing those, or maybe from some wounds, you could teach somebody else how to work through theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And also on the 3rd, Venus ingresses into Aries.
Yep.
And then do you want to talk about Jupiter stationing direct?
Yeah, Jupiter stations direct on the 4th. We've already kind of talked about that. And then, of course, the next thing that happens on the 7th, the Sun in Aquarius quincunxes Mars in Cancer. And so, I sometimes, I'd be curious what you think about this, Liz. I think of this sometimes as more maybe a little bit of imbalance. So they're trying to bring some sense of balance between, polarity between the Sun and Mars. And because, because we're still waiting on Mars to go direct, there may be some imbalance between what we're really wanting to accomplish and but we're not really all there just yet emotionally with this.
Right. It's like getting clues of information, but it's like maybe a piece is missing, or to get an appointment, it's taking a little longer than maybe you'd want it to. So I would just say be patient with that.
Right.
And then Venus in Aries is sextile to Pluto on the 7th, and that's a pretty powerful aspect this
Mm-hmm.
month. That's pretty strong. So, you know, love and power. So, um, just, make sure that it's a good use of power.
Right.
But
And you know, this could be the date we actually see maybe a new social media app come out. You know, Venus in Aquarius sextiling Pluto and I mean Venus in Aries sextiling Pluto and Aquarius. Definitely could be some fiery communications then. You know, we were talking about that passion and that aggression, so it'll be interesting to see, to kind of watch this on the 7th to see what events happen in the collective.
and then Mercury in Aquarius and quincunx at Mars exact. So I guess those both happen on the same day. So the communication and our drive, and Mars is like, what am I missing? How am I not being nurtured? Or am I not nurturing others? There could be a component, since that Mars is in Cancer, of, not getting your needs fulfilled, and you need them to be fulfilled.
Yeah, and I think too, you know, we've got this. We've got down there the Sun in Aquarius is sextiling the Chiron in Aries, which is the wound, and there is a lot of wounding happening in that right now in the collective, you know, and I think this is reflective of. I always look at the Chiron in this respect from a more mundane astrology perspective, what's going on in the collective, and so I think this again, this time to really nurture ourselves with our emotions and be around people that are very nurturing to us, and because there's going to be a lot of imbalance of emotions right around this time.
Right. So work on, take some effort to heal what you need to heal, whether that's to write about it, talk about it, because there is a sextile there. So,
Yeah.
okay. So we're going to go on to February 9th through the 18th. And you want to start?
Sure. So on the 9th through the 18th, the sun is going to be conjunct to Mercury. Because when they're so close, it's cazimi. It's where you actually can't see. It's burning Mercury there. You can't even see Mercury. This happens on the 9th. And then, of course, also on the 9th, Mars trines Saturn Pisces. And I know we were talking about this earlier before we got on the show. Any for anybody's out there is really getting into astrology, anytime there's any aspect between Mars and Saturn, even if it's a trine, you should really pay attention to aspects between Mars and Saturn, because these are two of the malefics from a Hellenistic astrology perspective, and they really do create a lot of events and change in charts when they are aspected. And I think this just means there's going to be an easy flow of energy, um, of emotions again within the collective, and could
Well,
it could mean that we take a little bit more of a serious emotional role to what's happening.
it's like they're communicating, because oftentimes Saturn wants to constrict or slow it down or contain it, and Mars just wants to take off. So I always think of it as the brake and the gas pedal, and are you spinning the wheels, or what's happening,
Right, exactly. I agree, totally agree with you.
And then on the 10th we have Mercury in Aquarius square Uranus in Taurus. So that's a pretty interesting aspect, and even though it's um a square, I would say pay attention on that day, and maybe a day or two before and after, to you might hear something, and you might need to jot it down, because it could be help you to trigger your creative side, or something you want to write about, or it could be useful information, down the road, not too far.
Yeah, and I agree. And this could also encompass in our individual lives any type of communications around resources or money or income or possessions and values. So there may be, because Mercury is squaring Uranus and Taurus, there may be maybe some, just sometimes maybe some miscommunications between us and the bank, or maybe even what the price of groceries is as we're dealing with the cashier. But it's really kind of there may be some things around resources or values right around this period of time that there may be a disconnect.
And then on the 11th, that Sun in Aquarius squares Uranus. So I'm just kind of highlighting that. So, for a couple of days, there could be that tension, and Uranus rules Aquarius. So, I would just pay attention to flashes of insight.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then on the 12th, we have the Leo full moon at 24 degrees Leo. And then you want to talk about the next one?
And then Mercury goes from that a sign that we talked a little bit about that can be a little bit aloof. It's kind of progressive forward thinker into the sign of compassion. And so this is where we good time to tap deeper into our dreams, because Pisces rules the 12th house of dreams and the subconscious. And so Mercury in Pisces is a compassionate communicator. And I love it when Mercury gets into Pisces. Also very creative when Mercury gets into Pisces.
And then on the 18th, the Sun ingresses into Pisces. So adding some more energy to that Pisces party that I was talking about earlier.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and then here's the chart for the Leo full moon on February 12th, which we were looking at it before, but I just drew in the aspects to the moon, basically. So, of course, the moon is opposite the sun, and the sun is conjunct Ceres and Mercury. And so then we have a fixed grand cross with Uranus opposite Juno. Do you want to talk about that fixed grand cross?
Well, I think that I'm focusing on that Uranus Juno opposition again. I think it's just highlighting our relationships, since Juno represents marriage and relationships, and it's in Scorpio. So there's definitely some transformation and change going on in our relationships. It's a good time to evaluate our relationships during this full moon, I think. What do you think?
Yes, and it also Juno can be our commitments and what we our alliances too. So I would agree with that. Yes, relationships are highlighted, and moon can be our emotions, and the sun is driving us somewhere. And oftentimes when I work with a grand cross, sometimes it's hard to stay focused and stay on point of what you want to get done, because it's like I've got 10 things to accomplish in only so much time, and which one do I start first? And pretty much just pick one and start, because if you sit there and try and decide, sometimes you can use up the 2 hours and you didn't get anything done.
Right. And along the lines of that relationship thing going on, that moon is quincunx Neptune, the collective planet. So we may feel that we're kind of out of sorts with the rest of where the collective's going, maybe a little bit emotionally. And so there could be some imbalance, very specifically around this time, to emotions with others in the collective. So it's just something to be aware of, grounding our emotions at this time.
Well, and I would kind of say, are you being true to yourself? And do relationships need an update or a little work on them, perhaps? And then we're looking at from February 19th through the 28th. And we use the chart for February 27th, which is the Pisces new moon. So on the 20th, Mercury in Pisces is square Jupiter in Gemini. So what would you say about that?
Well, I think, well, I think maybe, Mercury represents our thinking here, and it's squaring this larger planet, this engine, this driver in the sign of communications and thinking. And so there could be a disconnect that we could be a little bit more confused at that period of time. And probably more issues of focusing it could cause Mercury to be kind of offset a little bit with Jupiter coming in. But I think it also brings in, whenever Mercury squares a planet like that, it tends to bring in changes to our thinking. As you always like to say, I love how you call squares action. So it's calling Mercury to change or take some action in the way it's thinking here, at this degree.
And they're in mutual reception, so they're in each other's houses basically, or it's like they're or wearing
Right.
their clothes perhaps, but they're in each other's signs. So I would say, if you get off track a little bit, just breathe and you can get right back on track.
Right. And that's actually kind of also supported with Mercury trining Mars in Cancer. This could be a time when people are a little bit more rationalizing something emotionally. And so I think because Mars in Cancer can rationalize things, take actions based on emotional rationalization or emotional feeling, which is not a bad thing, but there needs to be some objectivity. And because Mercury's there trining it, they're kind of in the same rail car together here. They're like, yep, easy flow of emotionally what we got to do here and what we're thinking. And I think I like how Jupiter may be playing a little bit of second guessing there, and just helping us second rethink some things.
Well, and then Mars stations direct on the 23rd also, so revving things up and moving things forward. It's time to get moving again, and
Yeah.
if you've been having a hard time, and I noticed several clients have said that they've been a little bit tired, they're not sleeping real well. So I would say after Mars goes direct, I think that will help people, that they'll be sleeping a little bit better and getting things done in a more timely manner, and probably
Right.
be busy. People will be busy.
Right. Absolutely.
And then on the 25th, we have Mercury conjunct Saturn in Pisces. So do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, I think it's just again sort of that progression of what Mercury's going through here. It's squaring Jupiter, so it's second guessing some things, and it's emotionally rationalizing taking some action with Mars and Cancer. But like you said earlier, Saturn can bring some limitations or blockages or obstacles. So I think um, this can make the Mercury and Pisces a little bit more serious, because Saturn in Pisces tends to be a little bit more of a serious Piscean energy, almost maybe a little bit more Virgo like. Um, and so I think this is the time to kind of, as we say sometimes, put those dreams into action. Mercury with Saturn.
And I would say maybe on that day, be cautious a little bit about your communication that day, because sometimes we can say something
Hmm.
that doesn't come across. We might intend it to be in a positive or complimentary manner, but it could be taken offensively. So,
Right.
just take a check on your communication that day. And then on the 27th, Mercury in Pisces sextiles Uranus in Taurus. So, have your notebook ready to write down flashes of inspiration. It's like that could be really flowing that day. And
Yeah, and I think with all this stuff happening with Mercury and Pisces, we depression sometimes can be a little bit of an indicator, as with that Piscean Virgo, signs. And I think this is the time with, as Mercury goes through some of these difficult maybe aspects over the month, is to kind of, and it's in Pisces, it's really focused more on joy and gratitude, and then it'll work too.
then also on the 27th is the Pisces new moon. And I think yes, here's the next chart for that Pisces new moon. So we have a grand water trine and a moon square Jupiter. Do you want to talk to either of those?
No, I think we talked about those. What do you think about Vesta being a part of that?
Well, it's our home and hearth, and then Saturn and Mars. So maybe there's some changes, redecorating, remodeling, or maybe moving to a different location. Maybe you want a bigger house or a smaller house, or it's just time to purge the garage, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely would agree with that. And I think as we were talking before about when we were talking about that Mars Saturn triangulation, that I think involving Vesta as well, it brings in other people into the whole mix. So this may be more related to not just us individually, but group structure, that we have this. Dynamics with, taking action with some things, but some limitations and obstacles.
So, do you have any suggestions that people can use for the month of February to work through the month?
Well, I think, we're kind of on this cusp of what we always experience in March every year, right? I mean, that whole transition from Pisces all of a sudden into Aries. Like, this is where the things start to speed up, and the Aries ingress next month. And, so we're kind of on the cusp of some things starting to move forward really fast as things move into Saturn, Neptune, Mercury, you know, they're all moving into Aries. And so I think this is sort of the calm before the things start to move really quickly. And I think it's a good time to focus on the positive, and and really work on our relationships with people that have compassion and values like we do, and caring for others. And I think that's really important for our mental health. And I think that's also something really pay attention to with all this Pisces is in Virgo this year, is mental health.
And I would just say get ready to be busier than you have been in maybe the last couple months, and have a notebook or an app on your phone that you can record some ideas into and have fun.
Yep.
Okay, and Justin has a quote for us today.
Yeah, so I thought, because it's February and it's the month of love, and Venus is one of the major planets ingressing this month into a new sign. I love Dolores Cannon. I know you do as well, Liz. And so I love this quote by her, that love is the most powerful force in the world. Love just is. It is the answer to everything. And then, of course, she emphasized everything. And of course, if you I've studied near-death experiences a lot in this lifetime because I have a fascination for them. And there's one message that always comes through when people come back from the other side, and it's always about unconditional love on the other side. Doesn't matter what you've done or who you are, there's unconditional love. And love is what it's really all about at the end of the day.
That's beautiful. So, Justin and I have newsletters, YouTube channels, and social media. We appreciate you subscribing to us. And other podcasts that we do, Justin and I do the Astrology Monthly Forecast, the Full Moon Forecast, a Chiron Asteroid Series, and he's been helping me with the Mars Retrograde and Mars Direct. Then I've been doing shows on the 2025 Astrological Highlights. A new show is going to be Astrological Magic with Robert Passetti. And the Astrology Star Sisters have the dwarf planets, planet stationing, decans using astrology and tarot, fixed stars, Uranian astrology, and Chinese astrology. So lots to offer you. And Justin and I are on Talk Cosmos on February 23rd at 1 p.m. We're part of the Archetypal Symbols panel team, and we'll be talking about that Pisces new moon. And here's Justin's slide, and I'll let him tell you about it.
Yeah, so I really love it when people check out my YouTube channel, because all these great videos that I do with Liz and Sue and other astrologers are all on my YouTube channel. So please subscribe and like. And then if you want to connect with me at a much more deeper on social media. I am on Blue Sky under Astrological Yogi.
Thank you. And I want to thank all of you that have joined us today and all that are going to come back and view at a later time. We appreciate your support and we look forward to seeing you on other episodes. And Justin's website is justincrockettLZ.com and my website is alightpath.com. And we're going to say goodbye for now and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.